Hello, I'm Pete Martin. In this video, we're going to take a look at the ergonomics of returning to practice after taking time off to heal an injury. These concepts apply no matter what instrument in what style. Generally, we have to take a period of time off to heal overuse injuries, injuries that are generally brought on by too much playing and or too much playing with poor ergonomics. So it will really help to study some ergonomics of your instrument. For fiddle and mandolin players, you can look at Petamar Press in the videos under the mandolin basics and the fiddle basics, where I teach good ergonomic methods of holding the instrument and use of both hands and arms. Any musician who suffers overuse injuries, I very much recommend that you get to a doctor, and especially if that doctor is a member of the Performing Arts Medical Association, which you can look up on the web, and they have a list of doctors in various areas around the country. So definitely follow the advice of your doctor and your physical therapist or occupational therapist if you're working with one. Returning to practice is very tough for most musicians. It's very common that people will take time off and let injuries heal and then just jump right back into their full practice schedule. What happens quite often then is in a fairly short period of time the injury comes right back and quite often is worse, and sometimes way worse than the original injury was, which can set you back much more time by having to take off a lot more time than the original injury. So following these guidelines is very important in returning to playing. Physical and occupational therapists call the following method work hardening, and it's terrific for getting the body used to a workload again, but upping the workload gradually. So start with 2 5-minute playing sessions, only 5 minutes, and definitely set a timer. Get out your phone, set the timer on the phone, or get a different timing device and set it for 5 minutes, and as soon as the timer rings, stop. So I suggest starting with 2 5-minute playing sessions with at least 10 minutes off in between those playing sessions. After the first round of 2 5-minute playing sessions with 10 minutes in between, at least 10 minutes in between, after 4 days, the next step is to add one more 5-minute session, once again with 10 minutes in between. So now you're up to 3 5-minute sessions with 10 minutes in between, at least 10 minutes in between, so you're up to a total of 15 minutes. Do this for 4 more days. The next step is after 4 days of 3 5-minute sessions, now make one of the sessions 10 minutes. The other 2 will still be 5 minutes, and there will still be at least 10 minutes between. Once again, if you can now do the 2 5-minute sessions and 1 10-minute session after 4 days of that, if you're still feeling good, then make one of the other 5-minute sessions into 10. So now you've got 2 10-minute sessions and 1 5-minute session, still with 10 minutes at least in between each session. Now that you have two 10-minute sessions and one 5-minute session, make all three 10 minutes, once again still with at least 10 minutes in between. Now that you're up to three 10-minute sessions with 10 minutes in between, now, after 4 days of that, cut the time in between to 5 minutes. So you'll have 30 minutes in 10-minute sessions with 5 minutes in between. After 4 days of this, add another 10-minute session with 5 minutes in between. And every 4 days, if you still feel good, add between 5 and 10 minutes with still 5 minutes in between sessions. Ramping up like this slowly is very important so that you don't overwork the muscles and get them used to the new workload. I think it is very important to never be at the instrument for more than 10 minutes at a time, even if you're practicing several hours a day. I'll give you a personal story. Before I had overuse injuries, I was playing several hours a day, and quite often I would go at least an hour, if not as much as 2 hours, and sometimes even more, without any kind of breaks in between. Well, as soon as I hit my mid-30s, all that added up to overuse injuries. Now, I did have very poor ergonomics. I didn't know anything about ergonomics before I started having these injuries. And of course, having the injuries caused me to start really studying ergonomics. But one of the things that really helped me was this idea of not playing any more than 10 minutes at a time. And actually what I do is I play 5 minutes at a time. My performing arts doctor that I was going to at that time really suggested that I play no more than 5 minutes at a time. When she said that, the first thing I said back to her was, well, I'll never get anything done. And so she said to me, after your 5 minutes are up, take a break for at least a couple of minutes, if not a few more, and before you sit back down again for the next 5-minute session, think of what you want to accomplish in that 5 minutes. Well, when I started to do things that way, it was amazing how much more I got done in so much less time. So what I have found is when I practice that way, my concentration is much sharper through the practicing time that I do, and I'm not spending nearly as much time just kind of mindlessly going over things. And it really has helped my playing, and I get much more done in much less time. So it's definitely something to try. But it really does help the muscles to recover when you put time in between your playing bursts. So I very much suggest no more than 10 minutes with at least a couple of minute break. But in this period of time where you're doing the work hardening, have at least a 5-minute break in between and start with 10-minute breaks in between like I described at the beginning of this video. Once again, I cannot stress enough that when you come back from an injury, you have to do it a little bit at a time. I know it can be very frustrating, but believe me, it's much better than having to take a much bigger chunk of time off after re-injuring. Because once you re-injure yourself, and that injury becomes chronic, it's much, much tougher to heal. And you'll have to take a lot more time off and be much slower in returning to play. So if you can have the discipline to just work at it in this work hardening method that I've outlined, and make sure that you're playing with much better ergonomics, then you'll stand a much bigger chance of being able to return to normal playing in a much sooner time frame. I'm Pete Martin. Good luck with everything, and I'll see you next time.